Danny Cole had made peace with dying. He had accepted it 3 days ago when the Vreth warships surrounded his vessel and tore it apart with plasma fire. He had watched his friends burn in the vacuum of space. He had floated in the wreckage for 6 hours before they found him, half frozen and barely breathing. Now he stood in a dark room on an alien ship, his hands bound behind his back, waiting for whatever came next. He expected a quick death, maybe a slow one if they wanted information. The Vreth were not known for their kindness to human prisoners. The door opened with a soft hiss. A tall figure entered, and Danny forced himself to look up. She was Vreth, obviously. Silver skin that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. 4 arms, 2 folded across her chest and 2 hanging at her sides. Her eyes were the color of molten copper, and they studied him with cold interest. She wore a black uniform covered in medals and symbols he did not recognize. "Human designation?" she asked. Her voice was deep and smooth, like water flowing over stone. "Lieutenant Danny Cole, Coalition Navy, serial number 7-7-3. I did not ask for your number." She circled him slowly, her boots making no sound on the metal floor. "I asked for your designation. What do your people call you?" "Danny, just Danny." She stopped in front of him. "I am Commander Kelith Var. You have been assigned to me through the Cognitive Pairing Protocol. Do you understand what this means?" Danny had heard rumors about cognitive pairing. The Vreth used it on special prisoners, the ones they wanted to keep alive but completely under control. A neural link that connected 2 minds, allowing one to monitor and influence the other. "You're going to put something in my brain," he said. "Correct. The link will allow me to sense your location, your emotional state, and your intentions at all times. You will serve as my translator and cultural advisor when dealing with human matters. You will not run. You will not resist. You will not lie to me. The link makes all of these things impossible." Danny wanted to argue. He wanted to fight. But his hands were bound. He was alone on an enemy ship, and he had nowhere to go. So he stayed silent and let them do what they wanted. The procedure hurt more than anything he had ever experienced. They strapped him to a table and pressed a device against the back of his skull. There was a burning sensation, like hot metal being poured directly into his brain. He screamed until his throat was raw. And then, suddenly, it was over. He could feel her, Kelith. She was a presence at the edge of his mind, cold and distant, like a mountain seen from far away. He could sense her emotions if he focused, a calm confidence, a mild curiosity about him, and beneath it all, something harder to identify. Loneliness, maybe, or just emptiness. "The link is stable," a Vreth technician announced. "He is yours, Commander." Kelith nodded and gestured for Danny to stand. His legs were shaking, but he managed to get to his feet. "Follow me," she said. "I will show you your quarters." Danny followed her through the ship. It was called the Silent Blade, he learned later. A Vreth destroyer assigned to patrol the most dangerous sectors of contested space. The corridors were dark and narrow, filled with crew members who stepped aside quickly when they saw Kelith approaching. Too quickly, Danny noticed. They did not just show respect. They showed fear. His quarters were small but clean. A bed, a table, a screen on the wall that showed nothing but static. There was a door connecting his room to Kelith's, and it had no lock. "You will eat when I eat," Kelith told him. "You will sleep when I allow it. You will speak only when spoken to. Obey these rules, and your existence will be tolerable. Disobey them, and you will learn why my enemies call me the Pale Death." She left without another word. Danny sat on his bed and tried to think. The neural link pulsed gently in his mind, a constant reminder that he was no longer free. But he was alive. That was something. As long as he was alive, he could plan. He could wait. He could find a way out of this. Over the next few days, he learned the ship's routines. He ate bland food in the mess hall, surrounded by Vreth, who pretended he did not exist. He stood silently in the corner during briefings, listening to tactical discussions he barely understood. And he watched Kelith. She was efficient, cold, professional. She gave orders and expected them to be followed without question. The crew obeyed her instantly, but Danny noticed that none of them ever met her eyes. None of them ever spoke to her casually. She ate alone. She walked alone. She existed in a bubble of isolation that seemed to follow her everywhere. One night, Danny encountered another human in the lower decks. A young woman named Grace, who had been bonded to a Vreth engineer for almost a year. She looked tired and thin, but her eyes were sharp. "You're the new one," she said. "The one they gave to Kelith. Yeah, lucky me." Grace shook her head slowly. "You don't understand. Do you know who she is? What she's done?" She mentioned something about being called the Pale Death. That's not just a name. It's a warning. Grace glanced around nervously, making sure they were alone. 3 years ago, there was a rebellion in the outer colonies. Thousands of Vreth civilians decided they didn't want to live under the Dominion anymore. They took over a space station and declared independence. The Dominion sent Kelith. Danny waited. She went in alone. Just her. No backup, no support. And by the time she was done, the rebellion was over. Every single leader was dead. She killed 47 people in one night, Danny, by herself, without taking a single wound. Danny felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to understand what you're dealing with. The other officers, they're dangerous. But Kelith?" Grace leaned closer. "Kelith is a weapon. The Dominion points her at problems, and the problems disappear. Nobody bonds a human to someone like that unless they want the human to suffer, or unless they want to send a message." After Grace left, Danny lay on his bed and stared at the ceiling. Through the neural link, he could feel Kelith in the next room. She was awake, reading something. Her emotions were muted, controlled. But underneath the control, he sensed that emptiness again. That vast, quiet loneliness that seemed to define her. She was a killer. A weapon. The most dangerous person on this ship. And Danny was bound to her mind for the rest of his life. He closed his eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow, he would start looking for a way to escape. Tomorrow, he would begin planning his freedom. But tonight, he could not stop thinking about the loneliness he felt through the link. The loneliness of someone who had killed so many people that no one would ever look at her without fear again. For just a moment, Danny wondered if Kelith was as much a prisoner as he was. 3 weeks passed on the Silent Blade. Danny learned to live within his cage. He learned when to speak and when to stay silent. He learned to read Kelith's moods through the neural link, to sense when she was tired or frustrated or simply wanted to be left alone, which was most of the time. She rarely spoke to him directly. When she did, it was usually to ask about human customs or military procedures. She was preparing a report on coalition tactics, she explained, and needed accurate information. Danny gave her what she asked for, mostly. He left out the important details, the things that could get his people killed. He was not sure if she noticed. The days blended together in a gray blur of routine. Wake up, eat, stand in the corner during briefings. Eat again, sleep, repeat. Danny felt himself growing numb, felt the fire of resistance slowly dying inside him. Maybe this was how it would end. Not with an escape or a heroic rescue, but with a slow fade into nothing. Then the distress signal came. It was late in the ship's night cycle. Danny was lying on his bed, not quite asleep, when the alarm started screaming. Red lights flashed in the corridor. Through the link, he felt Kelith snap awake instantly. her mind going from rest to full alertness in less than a second. "Get up," she ordered through the door. "We are needed on the bridge." Danny followed her through the chaos of the ship. Crew members ran past them, shouting orders and preparing for battle. But Kelleth walked calmly, her forearms relaxed at her sides, as if the emergency did not concern her at all. On the bridge, the captain was standing before a large view screen. It showed a planet Danny did not recognize, a brown and rocky world with small clusters of lights on its surface. Except some of those lights were wrong. They flickered orange and red. They were fires. "Mining colony Theta 7, the captain announced. "Population 12,000. They sent a distress signal 40 minutes ago and then went silent. Our sensors show multiple hostile vessels in orbit. Korath." Danny felt Kelleth's emotions shift through the link. A cold anger, tightly controlled, rising from somewhere deep inside her. He had heard of the Korath. Everyone had. They were an insectoid species from the far edge of the galaxy, and they were the closest thing to a nightmare that existed in real life. They did not conquer planets. They consumed them. They landed in swarms of millions, overwhelmed all resistance, and then fed on the survivors. No negotiation. No mercy. Just hunger. "How many?" Kelleth asked. "Sensors estimate 300 on the surface. Possibly more. And our forces?" The captain hesitated. "We are the only ship in range, Commander. And we cannot engage that many Korath with our current crew. I have already sent a request for reinforcements, but they will not arrive for 6 hours. In 6 hours, everyone on that colony will be dead. I am aware of that." The captain's voice was heavy. "But I cannot sacrifice the ship and its crew for a battle we cannot win. We will wait for reinforcements and then—" "No." The single word cut through the bridge like a blade. Every crew member stopped moving. Every eye turned to Kelleth. "Commander Vaya," the captain said slowly, "I am ordering a tactical retreat. This is not a suggestion, and I am refusing that order." Kelleth stepped forward, and Danny felt something through the link that made his blood run cold. It was not anger. It was certainty. The absolute, unshakable belief that she was going to do what she was going to do, and nothing in the universe could stop her. "Those are Vreth Sittins down there," she said. "Our people. And I will not let them die while I hide in orbit and wait for someone else to save them. You cannot fight 300 Korath alone. Watch me." She turned and walked off the bridge. Danny stood frozen for a moment, then hurried after her. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "You heard the captain. There are hundreds of them down there. You'll be killed, perhaps." She did not slow down. "That is my choice to make. And what about me? The link has a range limit. If you go too far, it will cause neural damage to both of us." That was a lie. Danny had learned from Grace that the link's range was nearly a kilometer. But he needed something to make her stop, to make her think. Kelleth paused and looked at him. Her copper eyes were unreadable. "Then you will come with me," she said simply. "Stay close, stay quiet, and try not to die." They took a small shuttle down to the surface. Danny sat in the back, his hands shaking, wondering what he had gotten himself into. Through the link he felt callous emotions, a cold focus, a deadly calm, and underneath it all, that same burning anger he had sensed before. She was not afraid. She was not nervous. She was simply ready. The colony was burning when they landed. Buildings collapsed in flames. Bodies lay in the streets, some Vreth, some Karth. The air was filled with smoke and screams and the clicking, chittering sound of the insects as they hunted. Kelleth stepped out of the shuttle and drew her weapons. A plasma blade in each of her 4 hands, glowing bright blue in the darkness. "Stay behind me," she told Danny, "and do not interfere." Then she moved. Danny had seen combat before. He had fought in battles, watched soldiers die, killed enemies with his own hands. But he had never seen anything like this. Calith flowed through the Korath like water through sand. She was fast, faster than anything her size should be, and completely silent. Her blades cut through carapace and flesh with equal ease. The insects tried to swarm her, to overwhelm her with numbers, but she was never where they expected her to be. She ducked, spun, leaped, rolled. Her forearms moved independently, each one tracking a different target, each one striking with perfect precision. In 5 minutes, she killed 30 Korath. In 10 minutes, 60. The bodies piled up around her, green blood pooling on the broken ground. Danny followed at a distance, stepping over corpses, trying not to throw up. Through the link, he felt Calith's concentration, her exhaustion, growing slowly but steadily, the pain from a dozen small wounds she had taken but ignored, and beneath it all, a fierce joy. Not happiness, exactly, but satisfaction, purpose. This was what she was made for. When reinforcements finally arrived 3 hours later, they found Calith standing in the center of the colony. Around her lay more than 300 dead Korath. She was covered in their blood, her uniform torn, her body swaying with exhaustion. But she was alive. And so were the 2,000 colonists she had. Save. Danny stood beside her as the Vreth soldiers stared in disbelief. Through the link, he felt something new from Calith. Not pride, not triumph, just a quiet grief for the 10,000 colonists who had died before she arrived. She turned and met his eyes. "Now you know," she said softly. "Now you know what I am." Danny nodded slowly. He did know. He knew she was a killer, a weapon, the most dangerous thing he had ever seen. But he also knew something else now, something the other Vreth did not understand. Calith was not a monster. She was a soldier, and she would give everything she had, including her life, to protect the people she was sworn to defend. Maybe, Danny thought, the Pale Death was more human than anyone realized. The story of the colony spread quickly. Within days, every Vreth ship in the sector had heard about Commander Calith, Vio, and her impossible victory against 300 Korath. She became a legend all over again, a reminder of why the Dominion had created her in the first place. But there was another part of the story, a part that made certain people very nervous. A human had been there. A bonded prisoner had witnessed the Pale Death in action. And now, in the lower decks of every Vreth ship, human prisoners were whispering about it. They said the human had fought alongside Calith. They said he had helped save the colony. They said that maybe, just maybe, humans and Vreth were not so different after all. None of it was true, of course. Danny had done nothing but follow and watch. But the truth did not matter. What mattered was what people believed. Admiral Vesic summoned Calith to a holoconference. 2 weeks after the colony incident, Danny stood in the corner of her quarters, silent and invisible, while the Admiral's face flickered on the screen. "You have created a problem, Commander," Vesic said. His voice was cold and sharp, like broken glass. "I saved 2,000 citizens. You allowed a human to witness a classified military operation. You gave our prisoners something we have spent years trying to destroy: hope." Calith said nothing. Through the link, Danny felt her irritation, tightly controlled. "The humans should have stayed on the ship," Vesic continued. "Now the other prisoners are talking. They are telling stories about humans and Vreth fighting together. Do you understand how dangerous that is? With respect, Admiral, the Korath do not care whether their victims are human or Vreth. They will eat us all with equal enthusiasm. Perhaps cooperation is not such a dangerous idea." Vesic's eyes narrowed. "Be careful, Commander. Your victories have bought you a great deal of tolerance. But there are limits." He paused, and his expression changed. Became harder, more serious. There is another matter. Our intelligence network has detected coalition movement in Wrath space. A strike team, heavily armed, moving toward your current position. They are coming for the prisoners aboard your ship. Danny's heart jumped. The coalition was coming for him. How long? Keleth asked. Unknown. Days, perhaps. Maybe less. The humans are clever at hiding their movements. Desic leaned closer to the screen. You will stop them, Commander. You will capture or kill every member of that team. And you will ensure that no prisoner escapes. Is that understood? Understood. The transmission ended. Kella sat in silence for a long moment. Danny watched her, trying to read her emotions through the link. He felt conflict there, uncertainty, something she did not want him to see. Your people are coming for you, she said finally, without turning around. Yes, you hope they succeed. Danny hesitated. The truth was dangerous, but lying was impossible. The link would reveal any deception. Of course, I hope they succeed, he said. I am a prisoner. You are my captor. What else would I hope for? Keleth turned to face him. Her copper eyes studied him carefully, and Danny felt her attention through the link like a spotlight on his soul. Is that all I am to you? She asked quietly. Your captor? The question surprised him. He had expected anger, or threats, or cold dismissal. Not this. Not vulnerability. What do you want me to say? He asked. I want you to tell me the truth. Danny took a deep breath. The link pulsed between them, carrying emotions in both directions. He felt her loneliness again, that vast emptiness that seemed to define her. But he also felt something new. A hesitation. A fear. She was afraid of his answer. I don't know what you are to me, Danny admitted. 3 weeks ago, I hated you. You were the enemy, the monster who enslaved my people. But then I saw what you did at that colony. I felt what you felt. And now, he trailed off. Now I think you're something more complicated than a monster. I think you're a soldier who has done terrible things because she was ordered to. I think you're lonely because the things you've done have made everyone afraid of you. And I think... He paused, searching for the right words. I think part of you wants to be something other than a weapon. Something more. Keleth stared at him for a long moment. Through the link, he felt a storm of emotions. Surprise, confusion, a strange kind of hope. And then, slowly, she closed herself off. The connection went cold and distant. You are wrong, she said flatly. I am exactly what they made me to be. Nothing more. She turned away. Go to your quarters. Stay there until I send for you. Danny obeyed. But as he lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, he could not shake the feeling that he had touched something important. Something Keleth had kept hidden for a very long time. 3 days later, the coalition strike team arrived. They came in the middle of the night cycle, breaching the ship through maintenance airlocks on the lower decks. Danny heard the first explosions from his quarters, followed by the rapid fire of plasma weapons and the screams of dying crew members. His door slid open, and Keleth stood there in full combat armor, her forearms holding weapons he did not recognize. Come, she ordered. Stay close to me. What's happening? Your rescue. Her voice was flat, emotionless. Your people have come for you. Danny followed her through the chaos of the ship. Bodies lay in the corridors, both Vreth and human. The coalition soldiers were good, he realized. Very good. They moved in perfect formation, covering each other, eliminating resistance with brutal efficiency. A part of him wanted to call out to them, to reveal himself and beg them to take him home. But another part of him kept glancing at Keleth, at the woman who had saved 2,000 lives while asking nothing in return, at the monster who was also somehow the loneliest person he had ever known. Keleth, he said suddenly. She did not slow down. Keleth, wait. She stopped and turned. Through the link he felt her tension, her readiness for violence. She was preparing to kill, and part of her hated it. What do you want? She demanded. I want you to let them go. Silence. They're not your enemies, Danny continued. Not really. They're soldiers, just like you. They're following orders. They're trying to save their people. If you kill them, nothing changes. The war goes on. More people die. But if you let them go, if I let them go, I betray the Dominion. I become a traitor. You become something better than a weapon. Keleth stared at him. The sounds of battle echoed through the ship. Time was running out. You asked me to spare the people who want to take you away from me, she said quietly. I'm asking you to spare them because it's the right thing to do. Because somewhere inside you, underneath all the killing and the medals and the fear, there's someone who wants to be more than the pale death. Danny stepped closer. I felt it through the link. You can't hide it from me. And I'm asking you to listen to that part of yourself. Just this once. Through the link, he felt her hesitation, her conflict, the battle between duty and something deeper. Then, slowly, she lowered her weapons. I will make you a deal, she said. I will spare your soldiers. I will let them leave this ship alive. But in return, you will stay with me. You will not go with them. You will remain my bonded human until I choose to release you. Danny's heart sank. Freedom was so close. His people were right there, fighting to save him. But he looked at Keleth's face, and he saw something he had never seen before. Hope. Fragile. Uncertain, desperate hope. Deal, he said. Keleth nodded once. Then she moved. Keleth moved through the ship like a ghost. Danny followed her, struggling to keep up, watching as she engaged the coalition strike team with terrifying precision. But she was not killing them. She disarmed them. She knocked them unconscious. She left them alive in her wake, stunned and confused but breathing. 11 special operators fell before her without a single death. The strike team's leader was cornered in a cargo bay. He was a tall man with gray hair and hard eyes, holding a plasma rifle that suddenly seemed very small. 3 of his soldiers lay unconscious around him, and Keleth stood before him like a silver statue, her weapons ready. Through the link, Danny felt her exhaustion, her pain from wounds she had ignored, but also her determination. She had made a promise, and she would keep it. Drop your weapon, she ordered. The man did not move. His fingers stayed on the trigger. I said drop it. I will not ask again. You're Keleth War, the man said. The Pale Death. I am. Then why are we still alive? Keleth hesitated. Through the link, Danny felt her struggle to find the right words. Because someone asked me to show mercy, she said finally. And I chose to listen. The man's eyes moved past her to where Danny was standing in the doorway. Recognition flashed across his face. Danny? Danny stepped forward, his heart pounding. He knew that voice. He knew that face. Vic? Victor Cole, his older brother. The man who had taught him to ride a bike when he was 6. The man who had held him at their parents' funeral. The man who had warned him not to join the Navy because war was uglier than the movies made it look. Danny. Victor's voice cracked. God, Danny, we thought you were dead. I'm alive. I'm okay. We came to get you out. The whole team, we volunteered. Mom would never forgive me if I left you here. Danny felt tears burning in his eyes. Home, his brother, his family. Everything he had lost was right there, within reach. But he had made a deal. Vic, I can't go with you. Victor's face went pale. What are you talking about? I made a promise. If Keleth spared your team, I would stay. And she kept her word. Now I have to keep mine. Danny, that's insane. She's the enemy. She's a murderer. You don't owe her anything. Danny looked at Caliph. Through the link, he felt her tension. She was waiting for him to break his promise. Expecting it, even. Because why would a human keep his word to a Vreth? She's not what you think, Danny said quietly. She's not what I thought either. But I've been inside her mind for weeks now. I've felt what she feels. And I'm telling you, Vic, there's more to her than the stories say. Victor shook his head. I'm not leaving without you. You don't have a choice. Danny took a deep breath. But you can do something else. Something important. What? Danny turned to Caliph. Tell him about the Korath. Caliph was silent for a moment. Then she began to speak. She told Victor about the attack on the mining colony, about the 300 Korath she had killed, about the intelligence reports she had read, the ones that said the Korath were massing at the border of known space. Millions of them, maybe billions, preparing for an invasion that would sweep across the galaxy like a plague of locusts. They do not distinguish between human and Vreth, Kellet said. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They simply consume. And they are coming. Soon. Victor listened in silence. Danny watched his brother's face, seeing the doubt there. The suspicion. But also the fear. Why are you telling me this? Victor asked. Because my people and your people have been fighting each other for 30 years. And in that time, the Korath have grown stronger. They have watched us weaken ourselves with war, and they have waited. Now they are ready to strike. Caliph stepped closer, her copper eyes intense. We cannot stop them alone. Neither can you. But together, you're talking about an alliance. I am talking about survival. I am talking about survival. Victor was quiet for a long time. The silence stretched out, heavy and thick. I don't have the authority to negotiate anything like this, he said finally. Then take the message to someone who does. Caliph stepped back and lowered her weapons completely. Take your wounded. Leave this ship. Tell your commanders what I have told you. And tell them that the Pale Death offers a ceasefire while we face our common enemy. And if they refuse, then we will all die alone. Caliph's voice was flat. That is the choice. Victor looked at Danny. Through their shared history, their shared blood, something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. Or trust. I'll deliver the message, Victor said. But I'm coming back for you, little brother. Whatever happens, I'm not giving up on you. I know. Danny managed a small smile. Say hi to Mom for me. Victor picked up his wounded soldiers one by one and carried them to the escape pods. Caliph did not stop him. She simply stood there, watching, her face unreadable. When the last pod launched, she turned to Danny. You kept your word, she said. There was surprise in her voice. And something else. Gratitude. I always keep my word. Even to an enemy? Danny shook his head. You're not my enemy, Caliph. I'm not sure you ever were. Through the link, he felt her confusion, her uncertainty. She did not know how to respond to kindness. She had received so little of it in her life. The Admiral will be furious, she said. I let the strike team escape. I revealed classified intelligence to the enemy. There will be consequences. Are you scared? No. A pause. Perhaps a little. Danny reached out and took one of her hands. Her skin was cool and smooth, like polished metal. She stiffened at the contact, but did not pull away. Whatever happens, he said, we'll face it together. That's what partners do. Caliph looked at their joined hands for a long moment. Through the link, Danny felt something he had never felt from her before. Warmth. Tentative and fragile, like a flame in a storm. But real. Partners, she repeated quietly, as if testing the word. Partners. The link pulsed between them, carrying emotions in both directions. For the first time since his capture, Danny did not feel like a prisoner. He felt like something else entirely. He felt like maybe, just maybe, he was exactly where he was supposed to be. 6 months changed everything. Victor had delivered the message, just as he promised. At first, the coalition commanders laughed. An alliance with the Vreth? The enemy they had fought for 30 years? Impossible, unthinkable. But then the Korath attacked. They came without warning, hitting 3 human colonies and 2 Vreth outposts in the same week. They came in swarms of millions, descending like locusts, devouring everything in their path. The casualty reports were horrifying. Entire populations wiped out in hours. Cities reduced to empty shells, filled with nothing but bones. The laughter stopped. Negotiations began in secret, on a neutral station at the edge of known space. Danny was there, serving as translator and advisor, just as Keleth had once intended. But he was not a prisoner anymore. He was an ambassador, the first human to hold that title in Vreth history. The talks were difficult. Decades of hatred and mistrust could not be erased overnight. There were shouting matches, walkouts, 2 assassination attempts from hardliners on both sides. But slowly, painfully, progress was made. When the alliance was finally signed, Danny stood beside Keleth and watched the human and Vreth admirals shake hands. Through the link, he felt her emotions, relief, hope, and beneath it all, a quiet joy she did not know how to express. "We did it," he said softly. "We did." She paused. "Though I suspect the hard part is yet to come." She was right, of course. Building a joint fleet was harder than signing a treaty. Human and Vreth crews had to learn to work together, to trust each other, to see past the faces of old enemies and find common ground. There were fights. There were failures. There were moments when the whole fragile alliance seemed ready to collapse. But there were also moments of connection. A human engineer teaching a Vreth mechanic a better way to repair plasma conduits. A Vreth doctor saving a human soldier's life and crying when she woke up. Small things, maybe, but important. Danny and Keleth served aboard the New Dawn, a hybrid vessel designed by engineers from both species. It was an ugly ship, all mismatched components and awkward angles, but it worked. And its crew, human and Vreth together, began to feel like something new, something that had never existed before. The neural link remained. Neither of them had asked to have it removed. On the night before the final battle, Danny found Keleth on the observation deck. She was staring out at the stars, her forearms crossed over her chest, her copper eyes reflecting the distant light. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "No, my mind is too full." Danny stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "Scared?" "Perhaps." She turned to look at him. "Are you?" "Terrified." Keleth made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Good. Fear keeps us sharp." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the stars wheel slowly past. "I want you to know something," Keleth said finally. "Before tomorrow. Before everything changes." Danny waited. "When they bound you to me, I thought of you as a tool. A useful thing, nothing more. But you changed that. You saw something in me that I had forgotten existed. You reminded me that I was more than a weapon." She paused, and Danny felt her emotions through the link, a warmth that surprised him, a depth of feeling she had kept hidden for so long. "You gave me back my purpose. You gave me back myself." Danny took her lower right hand in his. Her fingers curled around his, cool and strong. "You saved my life," he said. "Not just at the colony. Every day, since then. You saved me from becoming bitter and broken and empty. You showed me that enemies can become friends, that monsters can become heroes, that no one is beyond redemption." Through the link, he felt her happiness, her gratitude, and something deeper. Something neither of them had names for yet. "Whatever happens tomorrow," Danny said, "I'm glad I was bound to you, as am I." The battle began at dawn. The Korath fleet was massive. Tens of thousands of ships filling the darkness like a swarm of angry insects. They had come to destroy the Alliance before it could grow strong. They had come to end the threat of unity between humans and VRETH. They had no idea what they were facing. The combined fleet met them head-on. Human carriers launched fighters alongside Vreth interceptors. Vreth battlecruisers provided cover fire for human destroyers. Two species that had spent 30 years killing each other now fought together as one. And at the heart of the battle, leading the charge, was the new Dawn. Danny stood on the bridge beside Keleth, watching the chaos unfold on the view screen. The Korath were everywhere, their numbers seemingly endless. Ships exploded in the darkness. Lives were lost, but the Alliance held. "All vessels," Keleth commanded, her voice calm and steady. "Focus fire on the command ship. We cut off the head, and the body will follow." The fleet responded as one. Plasma fire and missiles and energy beams converged on a massive Korath vessel at the center of the swarm. Its shields flickered and died. Its hull cracked and split. And then, with a flash that lit up the darkness like a second sun, it exploded. The Korath swarm faltered. Without their queen to guide them, they became confused, disorganized. The Alliance pressed its advantage, driving them back, destroying them by the thousands. By the time the last Korath ship retreated into the void, the battle was won. Danny collapsed into his chair, exhausted and exhilarated and more alive than he had ever felt. Around him, the crew was cheering, humans and Vreth embracing each other, crying tears of joy and relief. Keleth stood before the view screen, watching the enemy flee. Through the link, Danny felt her satisfaction, her pride, and beneath it all, a profound sense of peace. "We did it," he said again, just like he had 6 months ago. This time, Keleth smiled. It was a small smile, barely visible, but Danny felt it through the link like a burst of sunlight. "Yes," she said. "We did." Later, when the celebrations were over and the wounded were being treated and the dead were being mourned, Danny and Keleth returned to the observation deck. The stars looked different now. Brighter, somehow. Fuller of possibility. "What happens next?" Danny asked. "I do not know. Peace, perhaps. Or more war. The galaxy is vast, and there are many dangers we have not yet faced." Keleth turned to look at him. "But whatever comes, we will face it together." "Together," Danny agreed. He took her hand again, and this time she squeezed back. The link pulsed between them, carrying emotions that words could never capture. Trust, gratitude, affection, and something more. Something that had grown slowly over months of shared struggle and shared triumph. Maybe it was love. Maybe it was something else. Something unique to the bond between a human and a Vreth, who had found each other against all odds. It did not matter what they called it. What mattered was that they had found it at all far below them. The combined fleet drifted through the aftermath of battle, human and Vreth ships flying side by side. A new chapter was beginning. A new story was being written. And at the center of that story, bound together in ways neither had ever expected, stood Danny Cole and Keleth, VOR. The prisoner, and the monster, the ambassador, and the legend. Partners. Forever.